Have confidence in yourself and who you are and what you believe you are, that you are worthy and you are somebody
Mm.
because you are. God created you in his image, and each one of us is unique and perfect in that way. You are your own person. Be confident in your skin, be confident in what you wear, and don't wear anybody else's problems.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I am so excited for my guest today. Leadership doesn't always start in the spotlight. Sometimes it's forged in West Texas grit, shaped by faith and refined through discipline. Today, my guest is the Vice President of Martin County Chamber of Commerce, and she leads sales and client relations for Alpha Omega Leadership. She's a mom, a wife. She's a friend of mine, and I'm excited to have her on the podcast today. Tina Townsend, welcome to More Than Before. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Nathan. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm looking forward to this.
It's going to be great. So I'm curious because it's really fascinating to me that you're a secretary for like 2 months for the Chamber of Commerce, and then all of a sudden you're the president. How does that work?
Well, well, you see, it happened very quickly. I got involved. I wanted to be involved in Martin County. And I grew up there. I went to high school there. And it's kind of home for me, right? So, my cousin was actually on the board in Martin County and my best friend. And so we would talk on the phone all the time. And she says, I don't know, I'm struggling with this and that. And I said, well, I'll help you. And what do you need? And we'd bounce ideas off of each other and we would collaborate off of each other. And at this time, stay at home mom. And I said, I was bored. And I said, well, hear this, hear that. We're going back and forth. And she said, why don't you just get on the board? Why don't you just join the chamber? And I said, I don't know. If it opens up at the beginning of the year, maybe I'll join in. Okay. So then next thing I know, she says, hey, our meeting is Monday night. I think you're a board member now, or you're on the board. And I said, oh, okay. Not the executive board or anything. Okay. So we get there and the first meeting, it's one of those, all right, now we need to have our secretary. We need to vote a secretary. We need to vote, all this stuff. And nobody raised their hand except Tina. And I said, I can take notes, I can do minutes, I'll help. I know parliament procedure, sort of. I did a lot of it in high school. I said, so I'll do it. And they say don't open your mouth, don't volunteer, because there you go. So that lasted about 2 months. The vice president resigned. We lost our director at the time. So it was a president and I was the secretary, and then we had a treasurer. And we needed to restructure, we needed to rebuild, and we needed to basically start over. And then they said, well, we need a vice president. And so we got a couple, she recruited a few people, our president did, she became president. And then I recruited a few people to the board. And I said, okay, here we go. And so we have restructured the entire Martin County Chamber of Commerce. I became the vice president. Within that 2 months, they voted me in. And it's been a little over a year, I believe. And we actually just got an offer letter and a signature out for a director that we never thought we would be able to afford or hire 2 days ago.
Wow,
So
that's
we
amazing.
have we've turned it around for sure. Yeah. It's
I'm
been a
cur-
lot of work.
I'm curious. The volunteer aspect is really interesting. Have you always been one to kind of step up, volunteer, kind of be that first hand that kind of raises?
I don't mind that at all. I enjoy helping other people. I like to serve. And I think that goes back to my parents. When I was younger, our door was always open for whomever. It did not matter. It didn't matter if you had no money, no clothes. It didn't matter if you were the richest person in the county. Our door was always open. And so my parents always said, we're not going to turn anybody away. We're always going to have food at our table, and anybody can sit at our table to eat with us. We'll do everything we can to serve them, to be kind, considerate, and I kind of live by that, I guess, to this day. Of course, younger, probably not so much. As I get older, I think, man, my parents were such an influence. You know, man, they were so true. They were so real. So,
So where did you grow up, Tina, and what were you like as a child?
Well, I grew up on a ranch. We had two ranches. We had one in Garden City, Texas, and then we had one in Midkiff area. And my grandmother lived in Midkiff. My parents and myself and my sister, we lived in the Garden City Ranch, about 45 miles. And every day my dad worked down at the ranch and irrigated. We had a little bit of alfalfa and we ran a lot of sheep. We had a ton of sheep. So we'd gather cattle. We'd have shearing season. So there'd be a whole week where complete strangers, there's probably 12, 15, 20 of them. I couldn't even tell you how many. And we had over 1,000 head, I think we ran on that ranch and they would shear sheep all week. And my job was, I don't know if you've ever done that, but they had these really tall, I'm probably not describing it very well, but I mean, I was short, I was little. So I'd say, okay, I'm going to say 8 foot. I could be wrong, maybe 10 foot. And they had these wool sacks that you put up at the top, had a ring on it. And when they would shear, these guys would throw all that wool back in that sack. And my job as a little 8-year-old would be to jump up there, climb up there, get in and pack all that wool down. Couldn't tell you how many times I got stuck. And so I'd have to sit there and I'd wait at the bottom and I'd just wait and wait. And I thought, okay, well, they're going to throw more wool and I can work my way to the top. And then maybe somebody will see me and I can get out, you know? Uh, but that was my childhood. That's what I did. We lived on a ranch and we played and we were country kids, you know. I put a bridle and a piece of string around my horse and rode around like I was an Indian, you know. I mean, I was wild. That was our life. Yeah.
Where were you in the pecking order with your sibling?
So my sister is older. She's 3 years older than myself, and she protected me. She told me what to do, and I said, okay. And we fought a little bit. I liked to bite. I bit her a couple times, but we fought a little bit. But she was very protective, super protective over me. She still is. I don't think that that's changed. She's in her 40s and early 40s, and she's still very protective, and she still tries to tell me what to do. So there is that. But spoiled young baby, that's kind of what it was. Yeah,
There's
yeah.
something interesting about growing up on a farm, having all the acreage, being able to go out and really explore. I think a lot of kids, a lot of adults nowadays don't even know what that means to explore land and to kind of live off of land. I'm curious, as you look back at those times with you and your sister, do you have like any fond memories of you guys not maybe getting into trouble, but maybe creating mischief, doing things that maybe most kids probably wouldn't be doing nowadays?
So we had a hideout. Okay. She'd probably get mad if I said this, but it's terrible. We're two little girls, you know, but we had a hideout and we would saddle or not saddle, we'd get on our horses. She would take off and I'd have to follow her and it would be dark. It'd be sun setting. I guess, you know, it's 6 or so here right now. And so the sunset and that's kind of in the evening and it'd be about that. We'd take off. We'd say, see you, Dad. Bye. We're going to our fort, you know, and off we would go. And it wasn't that far. We'd hide out there and she had a, she, she took a bucket. We had a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket we set out there. And then we had these branches that we made into this weird bench that you definitely did not want to sit on. It was mesquite, but we thought it was cool. That was our couch. And imagination just was crazy. And everybody says, well, we'd take our friends out there and be like, they're like, well, I have to go to the bathroom. I said, well, there's your toilet. There's your 5-gallon bucket, you know? And they're like, no, there's no way. And we said, well, then you have to walk back up to the house. And they said, well, we're not walking back up to the house. We're going to ride back up there. I said, no, we're at our fort. This is our hut. You have to walk all the way back up to the house. It was quite a ways. And we said, and there's mountain lions. So you've got to watch for the mountain lions. And they're like, what? And we're like, oh yeah, there's mountain lions. There's could be tigers back over there, you know, and our friends didn't do horses. They didn't do stuff like that. And I think we gave our friends more trouble than we gave each other. So that's for sure. Oh man. But you know, my dad, he'd be like, what we'd get back in, it'd be late. Y'all been out so late. Y'all been out so late. Oh, well, we're cowboys and Indians, Dad. You know, they stayed out late. And that was just our life. It was pretty neat. But
I
yeah, that
love
was some
that.
of the mischief. Yeah.
It's so funny because, as soon as you start having kids and you look back on your own life and how how you acted and the things that your parents let you do, we were saying this before we even started of like, man, how did we even survive? I'm curious, like what are some of the parallels that you see as like with your daughters right now and kind of who you were growing up of like mischievous or like to explore? I mean, you're raising two very strong, independent young women. What are some of those parallels that you see of yourself and your daughter from, years ago?
My kids, they like to figure things out on their own for sure. They definitely have an imagination. I will say that. Um, my oldest, she's 10 years old, or 11. She's 11. She just turned 11 in January. So my dad has a bunch of bulls. He does younger kids' bulls, youth bull ridings and things. And so my oldest decided that she wants to be a stock contractor. That's kind of one of the things that she wants to do. And we said, "Okay, we'll figure out we're in plans for all of that. We're building to that future for her on the side." And I said, "Okay." So she says, "Well, I'm going to flank all these bulls." And I don't know if you know what that is, the flank, and it has to be a certain tightness and all that. And one day, long story short, my husband builds this wooden thing. So we have about 9 miniature ponies. And I don't know if you've ever trimmed a miniature pony, but it's absolutely treacherous. All right. They kick, they fight. It's worse than a big horse. It's awful. So my husband's like, I can't do this anymore. So he built this turntable, this wooden turntable. It's amazing. And it's on this pipe and we hinge it over and it like has this little hinge underneath it. And we lay these ponies down and I have padding in there, had to put padding in there and all this. And so we're trimming ponies. And so I thought my daughters would be super excited about this. My oldest has a little pony trimming kit so she can trim her little pony's feet and thought, oh, this is going to be great for them. So we're inside. The kids were supposed to go feed horses. My husband and I step out into the garage and we look out in the back corner of our property. And I said, what is going on out there? And so my oldest daughter had decided that she's going to take that pony table that stands up straight and you just lead a horse in and you lay it over. But when it stands up straight, there's a gate and it's almost like a chute for a bull or a bucking horse. Okay. So she has now decided, mind you, this is the parallel, the imagination, that we're going to get in trouble here. She's decided that she is going to flank her ponies and we're going to buck her ponies. And she's going to start a miniature bucking pony contracting thing that she's got going on. So we look out and I said, oh my gosh, they're going to get in a wreck. I said, are you going to do something? And he says, no, no, I think we're just going to let him go. And I said, okay, well, let's have a seat. So we sat and watched them buck out ponies. I thought, oh my gosh. But letting the kids letting them live out here, letting them, we didn't ever want our kids to go to public school. We wanted them to have an imagination. We didn't want anybody to tell them what they could and couldn't do besides, hey, you have to sit here, you have to get in a straight line, you have to this. I just I had an issue with that.
Mm,
And yes, they're very disciplined. They listen. We do tell them what to do on certain things, obviously, but for their best interests. And I said, I want them to have their own mindset. I want them to not get torn down. I don't want them to feel, I don't want people to belittle them. I want them
mm,
to be strong, independent human beings. And so I'm going to do everything that I can to pour into them that. And
mm,
so no matter what happens, they don't get broke down, they don't get tore down, and they're still going to be able to overcome everything.
mm.
And so anyway, that's kind of
I
what we
love that.
decided, and this is our life.
Well, I love it. It's so great to hear because I think there are a lot of young ladies that are out there that need exactly what you're talking about. They need a safe space to really understand who they are, to have challenges, but then also
Yeah,
to be able to explore and to be
absolutely.
able to have their minds open to opportunities. It's funny
Yeah.
because just this last week, my daughter was asking me. She said, "Dad, how do you make money?" And I said, "Oh, I like that. Let's talk about that." I
Yeah.
said, if you want to help someone, what you do is you find a need and then you fulfill that need. And I
Yep.
gave her an example. I said, "So you see all the rocks out there in our yard? I want all those rocks gone this summer. So
Yep.
you could come up to me and you could say, 'Dad, would you pay me $1 to fill up a bucket of rocks? I'll fill up the bucket of rocks, and for every bucket, you pay me $1.' I said,
Yep.
if you came to me and you solved that problem for me, I would pay you for that."
Yep.
And so I'm already starting to create kind of this entrepreneur mindset in her,
Yes.
to say, what are the needs that I could meet and fulfill? And if I can do it well enough, someone would pay me to do it. Now, I think for a lot of people, we don't really think about training our kids in that way of solving problems. It's usually about, what do you want to be when you grow up, and what great job could we get you to? What kind of education do you need to have? Versus really taking the spirit that they have and saying, "Man, what has God placed in you?" Which I think
Yep.
is really cool what you're doing with your daughters. I'm curious though, when you were growing up, I know I said this, but what did you
That's
want to
okay.
be, Tina? What did you want to be? Because I know you used to do barrel racing. I don't know when you started
Yeah.
that, but what did you want to be when you were growing up on a farm?
It was definitely, I would say, not a barrel racer. I did not see myself college rodeoing. I did not see myself doing barrels. I never saw myself picking up a rope, and I rope to the rope now to this day. So, I wanted to be a teacher. I remember every year for Christmas, I asked for an easel. I wanted an
Mm,
easel, and those old easels, plastic little things, and it had the paper, and you could flip the paper over, and you had all these markers you can do, and I would go into my room and I would take my easel and I would turn, and looking back now as we're talking about it, it's very interesting because I would have an audience in front of me and I would pretend that the entire room or the living room was my audience. They were my kids. I was teaching. And so I went to college to be a teacher and
mm.
I took a couple of classes, and I think in the first class, my professor says, "This, you don't get paid anything. This is absolutely terrible, and you're probably not gonna like it, and half of you are gonna leave this class and never get your teaching certificate." And I was like, "Man, this is hard
Encouraging.
truth. This is awesome. This is where I wanna be." No, so I said, "Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. I think I'm that person. I think that's me. I think I'm gonna leave." And
Mm,
so I did, and then in the position that I play today, in my work, I speak to people out in an audience.
mm.
And am I fulfilled? Yes. Am I a teacher? I don't know that I would say solely that I'm a teacher, but I do have my little audience in my living room that I'm speaking to. And
Mm.
then looking back, I think that with that question, I'm like, man, maybe that's not where God wanted me to be necessarily as a teacher, but maybe just talking to people, you know?
Wow.
So that's kind of enlightening. So that's nice. That was good.
Well, I think it's amazing because I kind of had that similar feeling for myself.
Hmm.
Is I grew up in the martial arts world. I was teaching classes when, gosh, I was probably 14 years old. I was in high
Hmm.
school and I started teaching kids. And there was something deep inside of me that I like teaching people. There's
Yeah.
a desire, and I have a gift of being able to teach things in different ways. So if someone doesn't understand it this way, then we try it another way and then another
Yep.
way until finally we get it. Um, there is something really interesting with that though, because with teaching, there comes this speaking thing. And
Yeah.
if I've understood this correctly, you weren't necessarily the person that wanted to speak in front of people. Is that correct?
No, I did not. I have to tell you this story. Like I told you, my dad actually built a huge arena. About, I don't know, 6 years ago, maybe. My time is probably off on that, but it's been a few years. And he had a huge bull riding. He started getting into the bulls and all the things, and so he had this huge bull riding. It was the first big event. Our sound was good, but man, it was packed. The entire arena was packed. We had it fenced off, for a smaller pen for the bulls. and the announcer stand was way up top, and we had an announcer. We found someone locally, and they were announcing, and so I actually managed the entire facility. I ran the bar, the concession stand, um, all the people, made sure everything was good, the security, make sure that was good. If anything happened with the sound, I would run across the arena, through the buck and shoots, around the back, through the back pins, and I'd go up to the top because it was at a terrible location in the arena at the time. Since then, they've moved it, but that's where it was. And so a lot of times the it would just get too hot. It'd start clipping or get too hot or cut out. And so I'd have to go up and I'd fix it. And then I'd run back down, clear across the other way to the bar and all the things. Long story short, ran out of cash and I had to run 15 minutes and grab some cash and head back. And so I grabbed some cash and I'm like small bills and I was running back. And on the way back, I get a phone call and they say, "Where are you? We need you." And I mean, there's probably 4 acres there and just packed full of cars. The roads were packed full of cars. It was huge. And I said, "I'm hurrying, I'm hurrying. I'm on my way back. We ran out of this, we ran out of that. I'm on my way back." They said, "Well, we lost all sound." And I said, "Oh, what?" "What?" "Well, we lost all sound." I said, "I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming." So I run back over there and I run up to the top and I said, "Okay, what's happening now?" And I said, "You're good." I flipped the switch. I did what I did, whatever. I said, "You're good to go." And they said, um, I said, "Where's the announcer?" And they said, "We don't know." I said, "You don't know where the announcer is?" "No, he disappeared." And I said, "Oh my gosh, are you serious?" "Yes." I said, "Okay, it's all right. It's all right." They said, "Well, you can announce, you can do it." And I said, I'm not getting in front of people. Like I'm not getting in front of people. It's not happening." So they said, "Well, somebody's got to do something." I said, "We got to keep the show like going." I said, "Okay." So I crunched down and it was an announcer stand, but underneath you could kind of go underneath the table and nobody would see you or anything. And I said, "Okay, this is the plan." I said, "You're going to hand me that sheet that has the draw on it and who's up. And you're going to hand me that microphone and I'm going to hide right under here and I'll announce the bull riding and you tell me who's in the sheet and I will announce them." And they said, "You cannot be serious." I said, "I am dead serious. I will not stand up there and speak in front of anybody." And they said, "Okay, let's go." I said, "Okay, let's go." So off we went. I probably announced, I'd say 10 bull riders maybe. And it was good. I did a good job. I'm not saying that to shoot my horn, but it went good. It was smooth. I did a good job. And I said, "Okay," my confidence started building. And so they're up there and I said, "How's it going?" The crowd's yelling, things are happening. And they looked down and they said, "Hey, you're doing good. Do you want to come up yet?" I said, "No, not yet. Give me one more. I'll do it after the next one." And so eventually I got up, I stood up, I ended up giving something away. And I told this guy, I said, "I'll meet you over there in front of that, the entrance door. And at the end of the bull riding." He was like, "Okay." And you couldn't really see who I was. And I didn't realize this. You couldn't see me at all. So I probably should have stood up at the first one. Nobody told me that. Anyway, so I walk around and I said, "Are you so and so?" Because I'd called him out earlier than and he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I'm Tina Townsend and I was actually the announcer." And he goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I know I'm a girl." And he's like, "No, you don't even sound anything like what you were." I said, "Yeah, confidence goes a long way. It just took me a while to build it up." But anyway, so I'm deathly afraid of speaking in front of people.
Which is
Deathly
really
afraid of it.
funny because
Yeah.
you're actually emceeing events now, right?
I am. How did that turn around?
Yeah.
So now, wow, I am. So I got asked to do a Maxwell Live to Lead back in January of 2025. And Shar Stewart, she works here at Alpha Omega Leadership, and she's one of our team members. And she called me one day and she says, "Hey, you announce, right?" And I said, "Yeah." She says, "Do you want to maybe come up and just do like a radio ad or something?" I said, "Oh yeah, that's fine. I'll do radio ad. I'll talk. I'll do whatever." And she says, "Okay, perfect." And then about 2 months later, I hadn't heard anything. She calls me. It's like, I think Thanksgiving. And she says, "About that radio ad, we're going to just go ahead and have you MC. And I said, I don't even know what MC is, Shar. And she's like, ah, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. You announce those rodeos, you'll be fine. You'll be good. And I said, oh, okay. And sure enough, there I was thrown into all that. And I thought, oh my gosh, how did this happen? Definitely can't hide your face when you go on stage for sure. So,
No, you really
no.
can't. But there is something that is so magical about being an MC. Like, I don't know. I used to teach martial arts for a long time, and then I've been on a couple of big stages. I've
Hmm.
I've spoken in front of a couple thousand, 3,000 people, and there's something magical when you get that many people in the room. I don't know if you've noticed this or felt this, but it's like the energy. You just kind of play with it with your hand. It's it's it
Absolutely.
it's not you bringing the energy, it's you
Yeah.
playing with the energy in the room, and
Yeah.
there's something really magical about that, and I think only a few people really know how to do it well, and I feel like you'd be someone that would be really good at doing that. I am curious, so you went to college for teaching.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So, what changed? At what point did you decide that you wanted to go and do something else?
Well, I had no idea what I wanted to do at 18 years old. I mean, does any of us? I mean, some people maybe, but I was not one of those people for sure. I started out at Midland College and I did the teaching, and I thought, well, it's very cliche, right? We're going to do teaching, we're going to do nursing, we're going to just do one of those normal little things. And I decided, man, I that didn't work out because I wasn't going to get paid enough. So then, in my mind, at 18 years old, right? And so then I did the nursing and I said, "Oh, I'm going to do nursing. That's where I'm going to be." And then anatomy and physiology is not my strong suit. And so I said, "Well, that's not going to work." And a friend of mine, my cousin actually, this is the one that got me involved in the chamber. And I said, doing her hair one day, and I said, "Man, I just don't know what I want to do. I don't know where I want to go. I don't know what my future holds. I'm kind of at that spot in my life, 19, 20 years old, that I have no idea what direction I want to go."
Mm.
And at the time, I wasn't super big in my faith. I was raised a Christian, but I didn't sit and pray every moment and pray every morning and have my quiet time and have my prayer time, not like now. And I said, "I just don't know what plans. I don't know what I want to do, what I want to do, where I want to be, and that was kind of my mindset back then." And she says, "Well, I mean, you're sitting here doing my hair. You've always wanted to do people's hair. Why don't you go and go to school for hair?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess I can. That probably wouldn't be too bad." And so, sure enough, I ended up trying out for the college rodeo team because I still ran barrels and rodeoed a little bit. And I got the scholarship and I went to cosmetology school and graduated with my cosmetology license. Made up a little salon, did hair. I bet you didn't know that, Nathan.
I
No.
actually did. I and
Oh,
you still
see?
have and you still have your license for doing hair.
I do, and I still do hair, actually. I have a few clients that I still take on, and I've had quite a few this week. I kind of took this couple of months off, and this week I had quite a few people, and they said, "Man, we've really missed you." And I said, "Yeah, I've missed y'all too." And they said, one of my friends, she tells me 2 days ago, she said, "You like doing hair, don't you?" I said, "I do like it." I said, "But the most joy that I get out of hair is seeing your face when I'm done."
Mm,
I said, seeing you doing something for you, making you feel like you are somebody and you matter because you do. And if I can give that to you or to a client of mine, to my kids, to a coworker, to a team member, that is important to me. And well,
mm,
how much do I owe you? I said, "You don't owe me anything. I got everything that I needed.
mm,
I did something for you." I didn't get any money at all this week, which I didn't care. That's not why I did it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think as I get older, as my mindset changes, as I dive deeper into my faith, um, and working where I work now with Alpha Omega Leadership, I see It's about serving others.
Mm,
And it means more of what can I give them without having to take. And I think the more that you can share that with other people and the more that people see that, then I think it just makes a bigger impact in other people's lives and it
mm.
domino effect, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I love that too. I'm curious, why do you think it's I hear this a lot that it's hard for women to really see themselves in the light that other people see them. Getting your hair done, and seeing the finished product and thinking, "Wow, I can't believe," obviously you have to have a good hairstylist. So,
Right.
if you're looking for someone, go find Tina. No.
No.
She's like, "I don't need anyone
No.
else."
No, I'm good. My plate's so full. No,
But
you're good.
there is something really special about finding someone like, I think hair is a beautiful example of this because there are certain hairstylists that when you go in, you sit down and you say, "This is what I want," and they say, "I know that's what you want, but if we do that, it's going to hide these specific features of your face. It's not gonna show the right things that really make you who you are." And so
Right.
you kind of almost talk them into you don't really need the bob. Don't do the bob. Don't take off all your hair. And
Yeah.
you speak to them in a way to say, this is truly a beauty that's been given to you. And you kind of get to mold and shape that so that they can see that. I'm curious, how has working with women to empower them, how has that changed you in your life to be able to help women see really who they were created to be?
I know that being able to work with them and being able to see that there's just something about it. You do somebody's hair and they just glow. It's like an instant glow. They get their hair done or you fix it or you style it. You might not style it the exact way that they want it, but it just it brightens them and they have this massive glow about them.
Mm,
And I I want my kids to have that. I want to I don't know, I want my kids to see that. I want my kids to see those things earlier in life than I did.
mm,
It took me a while to see that. It took me a while to be that. I mean, at 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, we're I mean, we don't know what we want to do, or I didn't. And, you have your college days and you have, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I've got all these big plans. And um, I want my kids to see what I see now at an earlier age so they can have a bigger impact for the future.
mm,
I want them to go further and be bigger and bolder and anyway, so yeah, I think that's really important to me.
mm. Well, it's powerful. How how has obedience shaped your confidence?
I don't know that I could really answer that. Um,
Or maybe in terms of, because I think one of the things that's really fascinating about you, you have so many dimensions about who you are, uh, from from growing up and dealing with sheep to doing hair to going to school to be a teacher, doing drums on the worship team,
yeah.
like there
Yeah,
are
that's
so
fun.
many different aspects to you, and I find it really fascinating. But you also have this piece about you where you say yes. There aren't a lot of yes people out there. There's a lot of no, maybe people, but there aren't a lot of people that say yes, and I'll figure it out along the way. Why is it so important to be obedient, to follow through on that yes? How has that created confidence in you even now in a sales position?
I I don't like to disappoint people. I'm kind of a nurturer. I want I want everybody to be happy. I want to serve them. I want to do everything I can for other people because it brings joy to them and I know that it brings joy to God.
Mm,
So if I can do that, then and stay obedient to that, then I know that God is going to provide amazing things for me and open amazing doors for me later on in life.
Mm,
And so if I can just have that mindset of the more I can do for others, the more I can say yes, and priorities. I mean, I struggle with that. I think we all struggle with that. It's not, yeah, I'm juggling drums and homeschool and I still do hair and I work part-time and I still take my kids to little rodeos and I still rope and I still volunteer for the Martin County Chamber and I helped start a junior rodeo organization that's now very large. And so there's a lot of things that I've done, but you also have to have priorities with that too.
mm.
So that's important. My family is my number one priority. My husband, my kids. Um, that's a priority. And sometimes I get thrown off. There's a lot of times that I'm so busy and I'm doing, and my husband says, hey, we're here too. I said,
Mm.
you're right. You know? So juggling that's tough, but staying staying in line with I'm going to serve and I'm going to help.
Mm.
Continuing to do that even though times get tough or even though you really don't want to. There's times my mom will call and, "Hey, I need a drummer for Sunday. Can you come drum?" And I said, "Mom, I really, really wanted to sleep in. I mean, like, I really wanted to sleep in on Sunday." She says, "Well, I don't have anybody." "Oh, okay, I'll be there." "What time?" 9. "Okay, yeah, I'll be there." And so, my husband's very supportive. My kids are very supportive. They load up in the car and off we go. But um, staying obedient is tough, but I know that it pays off in the end, and it will, and it
There's
does, and it
also,
shows my kids something, you know?
yeah, and there's also this piece that kind of surrounds you of community. How important has community been? Because I think you've been very intentional about building community around you. What what is the importance of having community in someone's life?
You need that. Everybody needs that, especially women. Absolutely. They need people in their corner. They need people rooting for them, and you need to be and surround yourself with people that are for you and not against you.
Mm,
That is super important. And there's so many people in this world and so many women, uh, women that I know, women that I don't know, that if they just had that one person that just went up to and said, "Man, I'm proud of you. You are doing an amazing job." You know, let's surround people with good, positive encouragement and positive enforcement, and especially women.
mm,
You don't know what a woman's going through. You don't know what they're doing at home. You don't know what their home life is, what their work life is. Encourage,
mm,
stay positive with them. And surrounding yourself with people like that helps you thrive and it helps you to grow. And
mm.
I think that's very imperative and very important.
Yeah, I think it's huge, and I think that I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like a lot of women have a hard time opening up with other women. There's a judgment piece that we kind of feel like, and I say we, like I'm a woman, but
It's okay.
like we.
You have a wife. It's okay. You've been around
But
women. You
but
get it.
there's a judgment piece that I sense that a lot of women have a hard time sharing what they're actually feeling, what they're actually experiencing. We were talking about this earlier before we even started doing this interview. Was that I know that there are women who work all the time and they feel like they're judged by people who are full time moms. I know that there are full time moms that feel judged by people who work that are moms. Like
Yeah.
there's this constant feeling of judgment, and so I'm curious, how do you get over that so that you can start to build a strong community, especially, for the woman that's listening right now, how do you encourage them to create that strong community when maybe there's a feeling like, what if I open up and now all of a sudden I'm going to be attacked because I'm sharing all these things, insecurities about where I feel like I am right now?
So I'll give you an example. I I just went through something kind of similar, I guess, in a sense. My daughter got accepted. She was on a wait list. She's 8. She loves gymnastics. And so she got accepted into this little gym. And I thought, okay, we're going to group gymnastics. She's done private gymnastics for about 2 years, but I never did the group gymnastics where she goes to the gym and does all that. And so they said, okay, we're going to start this, such and such night. Okay, here we go. She's pumped. She's excited. She's ready to go. And I thought, okay, I can do this. And I pull into the parking lot and it's packed. And I said, man, I know I'm going to walk in there and there is going to be this woman wearing Prada and this woman wearing a Coach bag or Coach shoes. And then this woman's hair and lips are going to be done and she's just going to be all dolled out. And then they're doing gymnastics and there's Cadillacs and Escalades. And I'm just so insecure going, what am I about to walk into? I
Mm,
don't even want to be here. I don't even want to talk to people. I just want to curl up and I want to like go into my shell and go, hi, that kind of thing. And I'm just like sweating. My palms are sweaty. And my daughter is so excited.
mm,
And we're walking to this gym and we're walking on the sidewalk. And I said, are you ready? She said, Mom, yeah, let's go. And I thought to myself, if she can have that kind of confidence at 8 years old, walking into a place that she has never been in front of kids that she's never been around that are probably 10 times more advanced than her, and she does not care, and walk through a group of women and moms and crowd and kids running this way and that way, and she is walking in and she says, I'm fixing to do what I want to do.
mm,
And if she can have that kind of confidence, why am I getting clammy? I need to be confident for her. So I need to be right in the middle of that and show her exactly how to handle this. And I
mm,
said, don't be nervous. Even though I'm sweating, I said, you know what? Shake it off. I got this. you know? Um, and it's the same. I do the same thing on stage. Why am I nervous?
mm,
My kid would come up here and talk all day long. Have that confidence. And It's hard it's hard for women. Women judge other women. Women, it's hard. It's hard being a woman, in a sense of that way, but, have confidence in yourself and who you are and what you believe you are, that you are worthy and you are somebody,
mm,
because you are. God created you, just like our masterpiece coming up. God created you in his image, and each one of us is unique and perfect in that way. You are your own person. Be confident in your skin, be confident in what you wear, and don't wear anybody else's problems.
mm,
Yours, you know? And so I think that that is extremely important. And who are you doing this for? Who did I walk in there for? Yeah, I walked in there for myself because, I needed to, obviously God was like, "Hey, get yourself in check." But I I want to show up for my kid. My kids are very important to me.
mm,
And I want my kids, I homeschool them, for them to see me in that light so that they can see that they can do it too.
mm.
I've got two young girls and they need to see that too. So, anyway,
It's so good. There's I love that you brought this up earlier that, you grew up Christian, but didn't necessarily maybe own faith, right? I
right.
wasn't praying it all the time or even every day or maybe not even every week. But
Yeah.
there is a moment for people when they actually do come to have a relationship with Jesus. And I'm curious for you, when did things shift for you when you really started to own your faith? And how are you how are you cultivating that with your girls right now so that they can experience something similar? Maybe not now, maybe it's down the road, but what are you doing to cultivate that? So, when did you feel that shift and how are you cultivating that with your girls today?
I would say that, I mean, I was back and forth when I was younger. I knew God. I was saved at a young age. I asked God into my heart at a young age. I was probably sixth grade is when I did that. And it was a little event here in Greenwood. And I was so excited. I did Bible drill class. It's like a little competition thing. I did Bible drill, did all the things. I was so great. And then, of course, you get older and you do things and then you kind of stray away and then you come back and then you stray away and you come back. And I did all of that. And my husband and I were engaged when I was in my early 20s, and it didn't work out. And I said, man, this just isn't going to work out. And so we kind of went our separate ways. And then we got to back together in our late 20s. and I had grown a little bit. I had gotten a little more mature, right? I said, "Okay, I have a real job now and I have real bills and I needed to grow up some." And so then we ended up getting married then. And so I we had kids and I thought, "Man, what a crazy thing this is." And he's a deep thinker and he's a forward thinker, and we both try to be very proactive rather than reactive in things that we do and decisions that we make.
Mm,
Um, and so I said, how are we going to raise our children?
mm,
And he was not raised, he was raised kind of around the Mormon church a little bit. And so he was not raised in the Christian church. His grandmother was Methodist. Occasionally he went and did that. And so he wasn't super familiar with, I don't think he has much background in the Bible as I did. And so I said, okay, I'm going to be an example for you and for the kids. And we're going to fight through this together. We're going to
mm,
read, we're going to study, we're going to, but it all came down to the kids. How are we going to raise our kids?
mm,
And like you said earlier, when you were like, a stay-at-home mom or a working mom, and, the difference, and, oh, it's better to be a stay-at-home, it's better to be a working, um, it is, you think the same. I work all day, 40 hours a week, but how am I raising my kids? Or
mm,
I stay at home and I'm a stay-at-home mom, how to raise my kids? Your thinking is the same.
mm,
You still think, what is best for my child? How do I want to raise my child? What faith is my child going to know growing up?
mm,
And my husband and I had that talk about that. And I said, okay, we are going to teach our children and we are going to be examples for our children.
mm.
And so I would say that that's when we really, both of us, dove into the word a lot more and decided that we can't just sit here and talk it. We have to do it too, right?
Yeah.
And God transforms us. The more you read, the more you study, the more he transforms your heart. And that's just kind of what he's doing. And that was the decision that we set down. It was for our kids. Uh,
Mm.
yeah,
I love that you bring up your husband too, because you guys have been married for a number of years, but then on top of that, your parents, 47 years of being married.
yeah,
I bring this up often on the podcast. I happen to find all these people that have been married for a long time, and I don't think it's coincidence, but it is really quite unfathomable nowadays that people stay married for 10 years, 15, 20, 30. And then when you get into the 40s and the 50 years, you're like, how in the world did you even get that far? Because most people can't even make it 5 years in marriage.
yeah.
I'm curious, what are some of those things as you reflect back and seeing your parents through their marriage? What did you learn from them that really helped you strengthen your marriage to be where it is today?
My parents talked a lot. My parents, they communicated very well with each other. If I would go, I remember as a kid, I'd go to my mom and, well, dad said I could do this and this and this. And she'd say, oh, really? Yeah, yeah, he did. Yeah, he said it was fine. It was no big deal. And, and she said, no, he did not. Well, how do you know? You've been in the living room and doing the dishes and cooking dinner all night. How do you know? My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I said, how do you even know? And she says, I just know. And I said, well, that's not that you can't, there's no way. There's no way. And sure enough, wow, some form, fashion, way, by some miracle, they just so happened to had spoke and I missed it. you know? Um, like, how did I miss them going back to talk to each other? They don't talk to each other. Parents don't talk to each other. Uh, Ever. I think my kids still think that my husband and I don't speak to each other because, well, dad said I could. No, he did not. Uh, communication, communication was huge for my parents.
Mm,
Um, my mom had her hobbies. She plays piano and she taught piano for numerous years, still teaches piano to this day, my kids included. And my dad, he did horses
mm,
and he did the barn and he did the ranch and he was outdoorsy. And my mom, she took care of the home. Uh, but they talked, they had their moments. They would always have that quiet time and they'd always discuss on what was on their heart or their mind or and share that because, I mean, you have to do that. There's a point where you want to strangle somebody, but talk about it, maybe work it out. They
Yeah.
obviously did. It's been 47 years, so they did a good job. But
uh,
yeah, I would say that. I said that that was probably their biggest thing, and they supported us. They
mm,
supported my sister and I. They were there for everything 100% in. If we wanted to do basketball or I did cheerleading. So you wanted to cheer. Okay, cool. Well, a month in, I was like, this is awful. I don't want to cheer anymore. And too bad. You're in it for a year. You're going to finish it. You're not going to quit. They both equally they agreed on their discipline. One didn't discipline more than the other. They had a vision for us. They wanted us to be successful. They wanted us to be independent. And they had goals and plans and visions but they were on the same page and they did it together. And
mm,
so I think that's very important.
mm.
I
I
feel
love
like
that.
that's what my husband and I try to do. So,
Mm.
yeah,
It's so wonderful to hear that you and your husband, you guys operate together so well. Not just on your own, but also together. Like you were saying, you have an organization, two regions that you guys run together for rodeo, and
we do. We do.
there is a lot of communication that takes place in any relationship, but a marriage, it really is important for two people to come together and to speak so that you can define reality. And I
Right.
love kind of your entire life, no matter where you've been planted, you plant in that area and it seems like you just blossom, you grow. You take those moments of opportunity and you really try to make them the best that you can. For all of you guys listening, I have one more question before we wrap up, Tina. But for everyone listening right now, I want to encourage you that there is a really great opportunity that is coming up. In this conversation, we've talked about identity, we've talked about faith, we've talked about courage, we've talked about hiding and,
Oh,
and
yes.
announcing from the highest of heights.
Oh,
There's so
man.
many different things that we've talked about, and we've talked about your growth, Tina. And if you resonate with a lot of the conversation that we're talking about, you have to know about this opportunity that's coming up and you have to know about it. Alpha Omega Leadership is hosting the Masterpiece Women event. It's coming up very soon. This isn't just another conference. It's a faith-centered leadership experience designed to remind women who they are, strengthen their confidence, deepen their faith, and surround themselves with an intentional community, which is what we were talking about earlier, about finding a
Yeah.
community of women around you. And this could be your opportunity. If you're in Texas, you can travel there pretty easily. If you're not in Texas, you should go. Get a plane ticket. It's not
Absolutely.
that hard.
That's it. No.
Or if you know someone that is in Texas that needs to be connected with a group of people that are intentional with like-mindedness, this is a great event to check out. Tickets are intentionally priced to keep access reasonable, so you can go, you can attend, but seating is limited, so I want to make sure that you go check it out as soon as you can. I'm going to have the link for the event in the show notes, so make sure you go check those out. But this has been such an amazing talk, Tina. You are such a wealth of knowledge on so many different subjects. Um, One of the things I kind of want to wrap up here with is I've been asking a lot of people who've been coming on the show recently of what does it mean to be more than before? I'm curious for you, as we've been talking about all these different things. I'm curious, what does it mean for you to be more than before? But also, what will women attending this event, how will they be more than before after they get through it? What is going to be different for the women that attend the event? What's going to shift and change for them?
I think that a lot of women get lost in their day to day, in their work, in the drama, that whatever's going on with their lives, the cooking, the cleaning, the busyness. And instead of being told, hey, you need to work harder and this needs to happen and that needs to happen, I think that women just really need a space that that they can come to and say, um, this is who I already am. I'm
Mm,
already this person. You don't have to tell me to hustle harder or hustle more, but finding out and digging deeper of who you already are. You are somebody, you are worthy. And sometimes we lose that. We lose that with the kids, with the busy schedules and things like that. And so I think that this space and this event is going to show them more of who they truly are.
Mm.
And a lot of people need that. A lot of women need that. They need to be reminded of that. You are somebody, you are worthy. And this event will definitely do that.
Mm. So good. So, Tina, what does it mean for you to be more than before?
I'm somebody way different than I was before. I'm somebody different than I was at 18, at 19, at 20. And being able to be more than that is just going to set up my kids. It's going to set up the people that I'm around. It's going to set up the people that I encounter, and it's going to push them to want to be more too.
Mm.
Um, I haven't had a terrible past. I've had a wonderful past. But I also needed to grow a little bit. And every now and then we all need to find our worth, need to dig deep and say we are worthy and we are somebody. And being able to do that now is a lot more than what I could do before.
Mm. That is so good. And it's so beautiful because what you just said is exactly why we do the podcast here. Is because people are living their lives with a bunch of dust on them, with dirt on them. They're like these little bones that we dig up in the ground, and they
Yeah,
just need to brush off the dirt to reveal what is underneath. Such a beautiful
that's
creation
it.
that God has created. And so for all of you guys listening, make sure you go check out this amazing event, the Masterpiece Women's Event. It's coming up right around the corner. It's going to be phenomenal. I can't go because, well, I can't go. But there is a
Yeah.
men's event that's going to be coming around the corner too in August. So we're going to talk about that hopefully in the future here on the podcast. But for all of you guys listening, make sure you like, subscribe, share this with a gal that you know in your life that needs a little bit of encouragement today. Maybe she needs a little bit of dust brushed off of her. Until next time, be more, see more, and experience more than before.